Hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and you're about to listen to a hypnosis session that is designed to defy anxiety, because there is a paradox with anxiety, and the paradox is that something makes you feel anxious, or the idea makes you feel anxious. So you avoid or overthink whatever that thing is, and the avoidance increases sensitivity, and the overthinking increases anxiety. So then you get more experiences of either avoiding or feeling anxious, not because of the thing itself, but because of the overthinking connected to the thing. So how do you break that pattern? Well, there is a psychological phenomenon called the law of reverse effect that actually you do the very opposite. So instead of trying to avoid anxiety, you just say, bring it on, I'm ready for it. And that energy paradoxically reduces the very probability of the anxiety. And a lot of anxious people would say, but I can't just say bring it on. I can't just do it in a defiant way because I'll get anxious. But actually, it's doing it in that way that reduces the probability of anxiety. For example, you might remember when you were a school child, there would be certain people that would love the idea of acting or performing in front of other people. They couldn't wait to do it. They wanted the big audience, and other people that were very self-conscious. And those that really went into it and they weren't bothered what people think, and they just thought, no, I want to perform. They ended up being good. And those people, very self-conscious, ended up on the stage being a little bit nervous. Maybe they heard someone laugh, and then that increased the anxiety. So it creates these diverging pathways, but both are self-fulfilling prophecies. So I want you to think of, and this client, by the way, it was public speaking in front of other people. So it's defying the anxiety. It's doing the thing in a very kind of ambitious, courageous, brave way. I want you to think of what is your anxiety. What would just doing it, and not doing it tentatively, not doing it cautiously, but doing it brazenly. What would that be like for you? And hold that thought as you listen to this, and then you'll get more from this session. And if you like the idea of working with me, I'd encourage you to do one of two things. I have a suggestibility test in the description, but I also have a webinar where I explain the whole process of working with me. So if either of those things are of interest, check them out in the show notes, the description of this episode. For now, though, find a quite comfortable place where you won't be distracted or disturbed. Relax and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in not relaxation, but a feisty stubbornness. That feeling that you're done avoiding, you're done running away, you're done over-preparing. And exhale just any of those things that have a presupposition that you can't handle something. Excuses, memories. Just allow them to leave your body in your outward breath. And I wonder if you can recall a time when you felt defiant. A time when you felt backing down was not an option. A time when part of you wanted to be tested, wanted to be challenged. Breathing in and breathing out. And just imagine perhaps a pride of lions. Perhaps you could imagine the leader of that pride being tested. And instead of being worried by being tested by a younger lion, the lion seems to smile, projecting the ethos of, "You dare to challenge me." And if that essence of bring it on, can exist in an animal, it can exist within you. So let's go back to that memory, a time when you were undeterred, and you know for a fact that other people would have been intimidated, nervous, avoidant in that very same situation. But there was something different about you. You were the same person, just with a different part in control. That part that wanted to be tested, wanted there to be some risk. And if you can recall a memory like that, to begin with, just observe that version with you, with that quality, and let me know by nodding your head when you can go back to that memory as an observer. That's it. There would have been clues, of course. Facial expression. If you were talking, the tonality of your words. Subtle mannerisms. That strong, undeterred, defiant, resilient. And maybe that version of you didn't want something to happen. But the fact that it was a possibility did not deter you. In fact, it activated something powerful and strong within you. And I want you to imagine seeing a color glowing under the feet of that version of you. And then imagine not just like a spotlight there under your feet, but imagine it going upwards like a three-dimensional cylinder, like a beam. See that defiant, undeterred, confident version of you bathing in that cylinder of light. Imagine what color that cylinder of light would be. See that version of you refusing to back down, and notice at some level that quality in you meant the thing you didn't want to happen was less likely to happen. And the opposite is also true. There is an anxiety paradox where the anxiety increases the probability of the very thing the anxious person doesn't want to happen. Just imagine someone terrified of wasps having a picnic. Everyone's enjoying themselves. A wasp comes along, and that one individual terrified of being stung by a wasp can't help but focus on the wasp. It's just invisible to everyone else there at the picnic. But that person terrified of what if they get stung is then standing up, waving their hands. And the irony is that panicked individual is the most probable to be stung, even though they want it the least. Or perhaps you could imagine in the same park or garden someone terrified of dogs. For most people, they're fine around dogs. But the individual scared that what if they get bitten will see a dog off its lead and fixate on the dog. And the dog becomes curious. Why is that human holding all of that eye contact? So they get closer. And that human has that anxious reaction, which makes the dog more curious, which may mean that human starts to run and the dog starts to chase. And if you're unconscious, you can see the pattern of where anxiety increases the probability of the very outcome the individual is looking to avoid. Let me know by nodding your head. And that could happen in public speaking. Someone's worried about feeling anxious, a spike of anxiety. They prepare too much, think too much. They're on edge, vigilant, cautious. The very state that increases the probability of having that very spike of anxiety they want to avoid. Whereas someone that is indifferent doesn't need to over-prepare or overthink too much, also doesn't want the spike of anxiety, but just thinks if it happens they'll deal with it, and then it becomes more elusive. I want you to think of that time when you felt undeterred, defiant. See you there standing in that beam of light. And imagine seeing that version of you in a different context, right before a presentation, right before a huddle, right before an important meeting. But see yourself with exactly the same mannerisms, exactly the same facial expression. If you're talking, exactly the same tonality. See that version of you, undeterred, defiant, with that bring it on attitude oozing from every pore. And that version of you is not fazed at the possibility of an anxiety spike. That version of you could not care less. Almost wants to be tested, knowing that nothing would deter them. And in doing so, the very anxiety becomes more elusive. And I want you to see that version of you doing the kind of things that a different version of you would have some trepidation in the past. But if that undeterred, defiant version of you seems to be unfazed, unbothered, highly capable in exactly the circumstances, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. Rewind it. Step into that version of you. But let's go back to the original memory. You feeling defiant, undeterred. Remember where you were. Remember how you were talking. Remember your inner dialogue. You weren't naive. You were aware there was a risk. It's just the risk did not deter you. That's the very essence of being undeterred. It's not that there's no challenge. It's that the challenge doesn't stop you. I want you to imagine re-experiencing whatever you experienced back then when you felt defiant, undeterred. You were aware of the possibility of something challenging, a risk perhaps. It did not stop you. You weren't anxious. You weren't worried. You were resourceful, resilient. You felt defiant and undeterred. And just scan your body for where you feel that sensation within you and just point to that location, that feeling of being resolute, defiant, undeterred. That's it. Imagine a shape there. Make the shape three-dimensional, give it a color. Notice how it moves. Increase the size of the shape, the brightness of the shape. Feel that feeling of being defiant and undeterred there. And then imagine taking that feeling into the very next presentation, the very next huddle, the very next meeting. Keep the same inner dialogue, the same posture, the same breathing. People can read that expression on you, embody that, feel that shape there in that location, vibrating, emitting that color in that intensity. And just imagine saying to yourself, with a smile, an act of challenge, bring it on, I'm ready. The paradox being, your act of defiance, feeling undeterred, shrinks the very probability. It reduces it. It says, I don't fear you anymore. Most anxiety is the fear of the physiological consequences of fear, a self-fulfilling prophecy. And when you call the bluff, even of something that was real in the past, but what if it was real in the past, not because the threat was credible, but because you thought the threat was credible? Just imagine doing that thing in that defiant, confident, undeterred way. A sense that nothing will stop you, and nothing will have you going back to that cautious, anxious, on edge version of you. In psychology, they call it the law of dominant effect. A dominant emotion displaces a weaker emotion. By activating that confident, defiant, undeterred version of you, there simply isn't space for that anxious version of you to be present. Imagine a big bus with only one driver's seat. If the doors open and that confident, defiant, undeterred version of you grabs the steering wheel first, there is no space for that anxious version of you to be in control. And I want you to imagine 3 months of that undeterred, confident version of you being in the driver's seat. And just imagine going to that future and being told there is an unexpected presentation. a big meeting, and just imagine the moment you hear about it, it automatically activates that confident, undeterred version of you. And think, how would you feel? 3 months of not a single spike. Because the version of you that would contribute to the spike has had no influence. If you're unconscious at that point, would come to the conclusion that this fear is now in your past, not a concern anymore. Let me know by nodding your head. And imagine 6 months, and then 12 months, and then 2 years. Imagine what you could be doing if any fear or anxiety felt like a distant memory. That you can recall that there was genuine times when you felt that way. You just hadn't felt it for so long. It kind of didn't feel like it was you anymore. What would be possible for that version of you? What opportunities would you say yes to? What difference would it make as it ripples through your business? What additional doors may open? Some people believe that everything you desire is on the other side of fear. But I want you to think of just one thing you desire on the other side. Make it appealing, genuinely desirable, beneficial in some way. You don't need a million reasons, just one. And that defiant, confident, undeterred version of you is the very part of you that will influence and secure that outcome. Remember that shape, that color there in your chest. Give it a sound. And be aware of your inner dialogue when you're in that state. And just say 3 words in a particular tonality of defiance. Bring it on. Keep saying it until it feels true, real, authentic. And when you've got those 3 words in that tonality, and whenever you want to feel this way, think of that shape there in that location, in that color, and just say those words, repeated until they match this tonality. And then you know you have activated the very part within you that is not bothered, not daunted, not scared. And in doing so, eliminates the very concern that's been concerning you. You are harnessing the self-fulfilling prophecy for you rather than against you. And you are just a few presentations away from having irrefutable evidence that how you feel right now was true all along. It's time to return to the present, taking this state, this feeling with you, looking forward to that next presentation, wanting to say yes to a talk, a meeting, initiating the very things you've been avoiding. So take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose, and wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes. Connect and calibrate into the here and the now. as I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. If you've enjoyed this episode or got some value from it, please give it a 5-star rating and review. And maybe you know someone that would also benefit from this particular episode, in which case share the episode with them so they can also get the benefit too. And if you would like to listen to this episode where it's just the hypnosis, so no intro, no outro, no explanation, just the hypnosis and completely ad-free, there will be a link in the description where you can subscribe at a very low cost and only get access to the hypnosis. So if that's of interest, please check that out. Thank you again for being a regular listener of The Hypnotist, and I'll see you again soon for more.